All right, Mr. Chairman, the time is 6:01. We do have a quorum. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Tom. I will call to order the special called Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting for Monday, June 24th. When I call your name, let me know you're here. Morgan Van Gelder.
Present.
Stephanie Butler.
Here.
Scott Manette. Here. Ralph Troop.
Here.
And myself. Missing are Allison and Jason. Next item is to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, in front of us is tonight's meeting agenda, and I'd like to make a suggestion that we make one modification to move all new business to be right after public comment. General public comment.
Mr. Chairman, we're looking at moving 7 and 8.
Yep, sorry, unfinished business and 8, sorry.
Yep.
7 and 8 to after number 5.
I make a motion to move unfinished business and new business to right after what?
Item 5.
8 and 5.
Great. I have a motion by Morgan.
I'll second.
Second by Scott. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. In front of you as a board is the past meeting minutes from Thursday, May 16th, properly and professionally prepared by staff. Anybody has any questions or comments? Now's the time. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
I'll
as
make a
presented.
motion to approve the meeting minutes from May 16th.
Having a motion by Stephanie. Do I have a second?
Second that.
Second by Ralph. All in favor of
Aye.
approving past minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So be it. Tom, it is now time for public comment. Do we have any general public comment for the meeting?
No, Mr. Chairman, they're all pertaining
That's
to.
the motion.
agenda
Don't
items.
promote me like that. Make me shake.
I didn't finish.
All right, then I don't have to read the prepared statement. So we'll move on to item 7, which is unfinished business, a discussion of vision for park uses and amenities, including input on a conceptual site layout for pending city acquisition of 21.37 acres at 300 Deerfield Parkway. Tom, do we want to do the presentation first and then open to comment, or are there pre-existing comments?
I think it would be best if we do the presentation first and then if there's any public comment, they can kind of bounce and react off of it.
Okay.
I'd like to introduce Cindy Bonacci and Catherine Newberry with CPL. They were brought on as a consultant to perform a feasibility study and a site analysis for the property at 300 Deerfield Parkway. They're here tonight to present their final concepts and the results from that feasibility study. I do want to remind everybody in the audience and listening online that these concepts that we're looking at here are strictly conceptual. They are not necessarily exactly what the park will look like someday if a park does go here. It's more of a just gives the city the reassurance in knowing that we can or can't put what we want to put out there. That was really the goal. Can we get 6 fields? Can we get our diamonds and rectangles? So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Cindy and Catherine.
Pull up the presentation. I'm sorry.
On the desktop,
It's on the desktop. Okay.
on the top right corner somewhere.
There we go. It had something else pulled up.
That's okay.
There we go. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay.
Give
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us tonight. As Tom said, my name is Cindy Bonacci. I'm not totally new to Milton, but it's been a while since I've been here with Parks and Recreation. This is Catherine Newberry. We've both been working on this project since Tom brought us on a few weeks ago as y'all began the due diligence on this property. We'll give a quick introduction to our team, our schedule that we've been working under, and the process that kind of led us to tonight. This is our team. I've served as project manager for this project to look at feasibility and a conceptual design for the property. Kevin McCumber is our principal at CPL. He's also our executive vice president and has been in the area for 35 plus years now. Our landscape architecture team consists of Matt Kane, who's also done work in Milton previously, Jim Sipes, who's also done work in Milton, Catherine, and then we have 2 interns this summer who this has been a great project to bring them on and to kind of learn taking a project from scratch and seeing what the feasibility is to put amenities on site. So we kicked off, I think I got the call from Tom right as y'all were beginning the due diligence period. We started working from a base sheet made, provided by the city from a survey. We had a programming call with the city, with Tom, with Jen, with Sarah to kind of talk through different concepts. Thomas, everybody was on with us to kind of talk through different programming elements that we needed to focus on site. We agreed to a conceptual freehand black and white sketch of the program showing main components of floodways, floodplains, fields, parking, courts, roads, necessary building, and of course site access. We did a rough sketch initially and sent it to the client and then reviewed during that initial virtual meeting. From that meeting, we had some takeaways, which we'll talk about when we get into concept A, B, and C. We did a revised freehand sketch of concept A and B. And then that led us to our final concept, which is concept C, which you'll see towards the end of our presentation. And then we created an opinion of probable costs associated with the conceptual design and finished with a freehand color drawing, which you're seeing tonight. And I will let Catherine start walking through concept A.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Catherine Newberry. I'm a landscape designer. And so just to begin, we actually started out with 2 concepts. Right now, you're just looking at concept A. And as Cindy mentioned, some of the program elements that we were really trying to fit were the triangular baseball, softball fields, the rectangular fields, 2 of those. What you also see is 16 pickleball courts. We were trying to say, hey, you could have like a complex here. You could have tournaments that could generate a lot of revenue for those kinds of events and activities. I think after we talked to him, talked to Tom, it was also discussed like, hey, if we could get tennis to fit. So you actually kind of see tennis on the northeast side part of the site, just north of the fields. But what you're looking at is a layout trying to utilize the space. We are thinking of grading, looking at the topography, and you can you'll notice throughout these concepts in this process, we really felt like the ball fields, the triangular fields, they fit the best on like the southwest part of the property. And what you also see is you see like in the middle, you see this concession buildings, and most of these buildings that you see, we're trying to incorporate that it's got restrooms, maybe picnic pavilions, so shaded areas for people to enjoy the space as well. And then you'll also see where we kind of carved out spaces for playground areas, because that's always important too when thinking of families coming to these places. So, but what you'll see with concept A is after having the discussions with Sarah and Tom and the team, there was this desire and the need that aligns with the City of Milton's transportation plan is to have interparcel connectivity and doing that with vehicular access. So I will say CPL as a team, we were concerned dividing the space, putting this kind of vehicular access through a park where kids are going, it can be crazy, ball time events, safety was our biggest concern. And so when we looked at this site, in which you'll also notice on concept B, We actually led with concept B, not trying to include that intervehicular parcel connectivity. But with this, what you see with this road is, we have calming measures. We're trying to do on-street parking. You see buffers with trees. We also actually try to keep parking positioned around the fields. So maybe we could keep, youth and younger players like playing at the baseball fields. They're kind of far away from the road, where then you kind of also think of, well, the pickleball is right by this interconnection. That's maybe more mature players, senior players. So we thought really carefully how to make the fields fit, where we're positioning them in conjunction with this connection, while also still thinking of parking, making sure we have ample parking. And I think I'll go ahead and go to concept B real quick, just so we can see. This is actually what we led with without utilizing that inner parcel connection. We felt like this was a safer design. It still utilizes the 16 pickleball courts, 2 tennis. We have pavilions. We have concessions, restrooms. And then, as you can see, the baseball doesn't change too much. But what we've also incorporated in all of the concepts, and as we were working through it, we tried to introduce that there was a perimeter trail. That's what you'll see with the dashed line kind of throughout the outside edge of the property lines. And so I'm going to move to this slide just because I like this one a lot, because you kind of see those two concepts side by side. And then you can also see more of the breakdown of, well, what does each concept bring you? Well, with concept A, we actually realized it wasn't a lot of parking. And that is later to be revealed when we go through our final concept, how important it was to have at least 300 parking spaces. But there are a lot of similarities with what are the things that are provided. But as we went through this whole design process, we really started to study more of the topography, the existing elevations of the site. And what you can see with B, the position of the 2 fields in that area, while it works really great, fields have to have a pretty gentle slope to function for kids to play. There are concerns, and I don't know if concerns is really the right word. It's just there would be a lot of grading activity to make fields in that position on concept B work, so much that when I think we talked about this as a group, what are ways that we could maybe decrease that, or can we move and position them differently? But it would require some major retaining walls, is what I'm getting at, which would be further studied the more that this concept gets developed. But just again, to touch on some things that you'll also see in the final concept, we also included a maintenance area just south of the triangular ball fields. It can have its own separate entrance, gated. And what you also see is the major entry to these parks aligns with the median break that's already at Deerfield Parkway. We think access getting in and out will be great. But then I'll lead to some of the discovery that we had as after we presented these concepts. It was revealed from an older survey that you can kind of see on this. Basically, you're seeing progress sketches of how we saw that there were wetlands on the site, and then that there actually is a spring head, which requires, there are state water buffers that we have to acknowledge, that we can't really put that rectangular field right there where it was shown in some of the other earlier concepts. What we also talked about was let's add some batting cages towards the baseball side. That made perfect sense. It was also discussed that 16 pickleball courts would be fantastic, but if we have to make some adjustments for other things to fit, we could reduce those numbers. And then it was also, as we showed the parking study from the other concepts, it was understood that we really have to maintain a minimum of 300 spaces. So that's taking some of these things and then also still trying to fit the fields, the program, the interparcel connectivity for vehicles, and then also just understanding the grading considerations. It led to our final revised sketch, which is what you see now and what's displayed right there on the board when you came in. So with this, you actually see where I had shown before, where there was the wetlands and the stream buffers, it's a nature preserved area. We're not going to try and touch that area as much as possible. There's even a pavilion that's located just by the blue pickleball courts that you see at that top right corner. This whole area could be celebrated with a trail going through it. We show like a boardwalk connection over the spring head, which could be really nice. But what ultimately was discovered with this is if we want to keep our 4 triangular fields, if we want to keep these 2, the 2 rectangular fields and maintain the 300 parking spaces, it's really just not suitable to do that intervehicular connection through the site. The grading, the more we kept revising and looking at these sketches, you'll also notice in this plan, which I really like, is we took more into consideration with the perimeter around the rectangular fields. Before we were showing something slightly smaller, but now what you see is 360 by 210 with 20-foot clearance around those fields, which enables you to have football, lacrosse, soccer, and then the youth programs can be alternated, rotated. But we felt like giving more space around these fields, meeting the parking, we have the playground areas, and like I said before, like even the rec field number 2, that's the farthest one on the right, just above it is the bigger playground area next to a restroom pavilion, a picnic pavilion. There are floor plans that we considered to accommodate something other than just restrooms. And I guess the other thing I'll mention is you'll see the 4 triangular fields. The batting cages are just to the right, kind of in between the first rec field and then the triangular fields. And then we have another play area. So the baseball, softball, families, teams, they can have that kind of experience too between the larger number 4 and number 1. But I think we were really pleased with how this layout came about. I think even in this final concept, we were also addressing more of the buffers around the property, making sure we had plenty of space to do the grading that I think is still going to be required of this site to make those rectangular fields work. But you'll see the perimeter trail is highlighted with the white dashed, and we also incorporated in the blue dash that's along Deerfield, the existing sidewalk. So all in all, you also create this perimeter loop that's just over a mile. Which with also other interconnecting walkways throughout the park. But, and that's what led to this final design. So again, and I know I left that on the screen for very long, but this also gives you that breakout that we had showed with the earlier concepts. And trust me, we drew on this many, many times. I was dreaming about it, how the fields could rotate and how they could fit. But we really do feel like this would be a strong design, a great park with lots of connectivity, preserved trees throughout. The trees that are cleared, we're trying to show ample trees that could be replaced. Even between the 2 rec fields that you see, how the parking is kind of like looped in between it, there's a whole area that I would dedicate to stormwater management alone, just for the clearing that would have to happen on this site to fit this active park. But I'll go through, yes, I went through the perimeter trail. I just wanted to stress at the end that we're also thinking about trying to preserve as much of the tree areas that we could in certain pockets throughout the park, because I think that would make it feel a lot more like Milton too. And so now the fun part. How much does something like all of this cost? So we provided y'all, and I don't know if Tom gave y'all a copy of like the fully itemized cost estimate. But what you see here is it's a little overwhelming to see all those numbers. I don't even know if you could see all of that on one slide. So I grouped things in more or less in order of that those cost items that you saw. But just so you could kind of break it out to the site prep alone might be $750, baseball fields, rectangular fields. And the cost For these fields, it's for artificial turf. It's for understanding the drainage systems that are involved underneath them. It's also taking into account some of those walls and that grading activity that I mentioned that would make this site successful. From rough grading to fine grading, the site amenities were grouped together for the playgrounds, the walkways, the trails, the parking, the pickleball courts. This includes the number for not only just the courts themselves, but you're having that restroom right there too, because they're going to want that. Having a pavilion right there so they can enjoy and rest while other people are playing. We broke out the maintenance building as something a little separate. But all in all, when you see this number, what's the project construction cost? So in our opinion, with all those items and those numbers, you're looking at 16,191. And then we also take into consideration, well, that's the cost to build it. You also have to think about, you're going to have engineers, designers to design the park. So we took a base percentage of what the cost of the construction is to say, this is what we think the design fees would be. And then in the end, we also try and include some form of contingency, just because, again, this is a very conceptual plan. This is not the CDs that the contractor is going to take to build from. You kind of have to look at things on a little bit of an outer level. We haven't designed the playground or designed the fields themselves, but this is the range that we're looking at, 17 to very close to 20. And we stand by this number just because we do these projects very often. This is something we always offer to our clients because it's not real unless you can budget for it and make it happen. So we feel very comfortable with these numbers. And that just also leads to if there are any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Catherine
Yeah.
and Cindy. Appreciate the detailed development of Concept C.
Yeah.
We'll turn it over to the board for questions of you guys first, and then we'll go to public comment. So, colleagues, questions for?
I would direct this to Tom. How do those numbers look?
The construction came in right where we thought it would.
Okay.
Even with the contingency, we've been looking at increasing the budget number for this park because everything that we've been bidding out lately comes in higher than we expected. In a phone call last week, I did try to pin Cindy down and I said, "Hey, just tell me higher or lower. What do you think? 16." She couldn't answer me, but then it comes back at 16.1.
And he was very close. So.
Yeah, but yeah, it's what we were expecting.
Okay.
And no tennis in Concept C.
No, and actually, well, I take that back. So there is that small space where there's 4 pickleball courts. That doesn't necessarily have to be pickleball. That could be tennis. That could be outdoor basketball. That could be another large pavilion gathering space. That's an amenity that could change. Obviously, it's just conceptual, but we did show the pickleball because that's one of the first things that Tom brought up to us. And we did try to incorporate tennis with those earlier concepts, but for this one, it just did not work. Those 6 fields were our priority and the number of parking spaces.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
yeah.
No, I'm really impressed how the parking
Yeah.
got preserved and increased from prior plans, because having run these programs, it's just Saturdays are a busy day. And so you just can't ever have enough parking, and you can't park on Deerfield. That was never going to work. So it's got to be inside. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, he asked for 300 and we gave him 301.
Yes.
We like to be overachievers, yes.
And we are, just for the record, we are in discussions with some of the neighboring properties as well to potentially go into some agreements for shared parking.
Cool.
In case I'm anticipating once in a while we might need it even at the 300. I think on a typical Saturday, Sunday, and weeknight, I think 300 is going to be fine. But when Eagle Sticks runs their tournament, that Bell's parking lot fills up.
Yeah.
So, I could see that potentially happening, on once or twice a year. We, maybe every few months we might need some overflow parking. So we're accounting for that.
I know it's conceptual, and I don't play pickleball. Is 4 pickleball courts just enough to frustrate people for not having enough pickleball courts?
Probably. Yes.
Yes.
So, I mean, not to be smart, but like it's either no pickleball courts or frustrate people with 4. Maybe there's a better use for that, and then potentially look at another area for pickleball.
Fair enough. Ralph, comment?
Nothing.
I guess we'll open it up to comment. If anyone walked in during the presentation and you've got a comment card, make sure you turn it into Tom so we know who you are. And then Tom will steer us on inviting residents up to come and residents and others give us input on the plan.
So for the public comment, we'll do 5 minutes. I'll keep time. I unfortunately have not been trained on that clock on the wall, but I'll give a 1 minute warning unless Jen can figure it out.
Jen could run it on your phone.
And our first public comment.
She showed it to me.
I apologize. I've never been to one of these before,
Yes, sir.
so I don't know the proper etiquette, so I need some guidance.
Sure.
There's some general context about the objective here, because what is it that's driving the desire to do this? Talk about building a park, it's actually building a sports complex. Be accurate about it. And there's one like this at Bell Memorial Park already in Milton. So I don't know if the proper way to ask what is driving the use of this property, why we think the community thinks this is what we need to do. More appropriate for me to ask up there or now?
You do it, Darren.
You could bring it forward in your public comment question.
You can ask those questions during public comment.
Yeah.
Now or?
Yeah, fill out a card. Do you have a card? Oh, yeah. You're one of these in here? Okay. Yeah. I'll call you up and you can speak.
Yeah.
Okay. So our first public comment is Nicole Sahoni.
So, and I would remind everyone who comes up for public comment, please give us your name and your street address. Thank you.
I'm going to give you one of these when you have 30 seconds left.
Okay. One of these. Tell me when to go. Okay. Nicole Sahoni. I'm at 12858. Nicole Sahoni, 12858 Deer Park Lane. I'm in Lake Deerfield community, which is in the bottom right corner of the map there. And primarily my question, similar to Johnny's, is we appreciate all the work that went into it. But as a resident of Lake Deerfield, we're concerned about leveling all those trees and creating possible noise issues, light issues, and want to know the considerations that went in for the neighboring communities, not just for parking, because it will be busy on Saturdays. But how are we going to ensure the floodlights don't flood into the neighboring property, especially our residents that face Lake Deerfield? And then also the noise, pickleball courts, hearing the ping, ping, ping until 10 or 11 at night. What's being done to ensure our community is preserved. Right now, it's a nice, quiet community, and we're concerned with that traffic and that noise.
Thanks, Nicole. Tom, just a clarification.
We're not going to have any back and forth
Yeah,
on the
that's-
public comment, but
yeah.
I'm taking notes on what everyone says and we can address it
Yep.
at the end.
Yep. Just
And
want
then I
everybody
have
to
your
be clear.
email, send it.
We'd be here for hours playing
I
point
know,
by
I know.
point.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so thank you, Nicole, for coming
Yeah.
and speaking up.
I
Um,
have a list of questions, actually. I'm going to send over some more detailed questions,
Sure.
but that's the general intent.
Yep. Fair
Hey, Tom,
comments.
at some point, there was that overview picture that showed a little bit more than the site. So it'd be nice to get an idea of where, I'm not familiar with where your neighborhood is in relation to it. So that would be nice to be able to look at it from a bird's eye view.
Yeah, if we zoom out, yeah, it would be nice to see, because we're kind of across, and if there's intent of two, which I believe on option C was 2 entrances from Lake Deerfield and no longer the one from Highway 9. So it's going to definitely increase the congestion, the noise, the driving on Lake Deerfield.
Super. Thanks.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
2.5. You did great.
All right, our next is John Lundstedt.
Sorry. John Lundstedt, 15755 Burdette Court. Thank you for doing the public comment after the presentation, by the way. I always feel like I'm behind when I come to these and I miss stuff. But I got a whole bunch of opinions on the Deerfield property, especially the conversation we just had. So pickleball and tennis, we do not need pickleball and tennis at this field. We have to focus on what we need and why we're doing this, and it's fields. And pickleball, maybe 2 years ago, okay, maybe that's something that's important. Every neighborhood now has pickleball. I guarantee your neighborhoods have pickleball. There's also commercial pickleball. If you go to ACE, which is a commercial pickleball facility in Roswell, there are 12 courts. You can play pickleball indoors. You can go anytime and have tournaments. We do not need to waste our time, our money, our energy on pickleball courts. We need fields. Same thing for tennis. If you look at those tennis courts up at Alpharetta North Park, they're never used. And by the way, Tuesday night, go over to Crab Apple Chase where I play tennis. Those 2 tennis courts are turned into 4 pickleball courts. Neighborhoods are repurposing their tennis courts or building pickleball courts. We don't need to be in that business. It just takes up space, time, and money. I said the same thing about tennis. I thought it was off. I was very happy it came up again. Don't put tennis courts there. We don't need to do it. The rectangles and triangles. So I look at this drawing and I see the 4 baseball fields, right? But if you go by Bell Memorial Park, and I go there all the time, several times a day, I'm driving by, my daughter plays there. And with the exception of the times where people are playing baseball or practicing baseball, those baseball fields are empty. But the 2 rectangles are used all the time by girls lacrosse, boys lacrosse, football, tackle football, touch football, by boys soccer, by girls soccer, and then by groups working out. But you never see those groups on the triangles. So in other words, it only goes one way. So those baseball fields are empty except for baseball, except for practice. Now, if you go to Legacy Park, what you see is rectangles that have multi-purpose. So you can play baseball on a rectangle. And I saw in the drawing, I believe this is going to be artificial turf, the baseball fields. So you can set those up where you can play baseball. The home run field, I think is 200 yards. And so those are about 2, you can even make them 220. You can still have 2 fields, baseball fields on a rectangle. We need more rectangles. They're much more flexible. They're much more multi-purpose. The other thing that we could have space for if we get rid of those pickleball courts and other stuff is a smaller field. So if you look at that top field at Legacy Park, that's that mini field. The junior teams can play full on there, lacrosse and soccer, but other teams can work out and do their training on those fields for soccer and lacrosse. So it is a very useful thing to put if you have space. Even if it's a mini field, it's an additional field space that gets utilized all the time. So we can repurpose 2 of those baseball fields into a rectangle, but you can still play baseball there. It doesn't take away any of that capability. Parking. I don't know why we need 300 spaces. Now listen, 363 days of the year, Bell Memorial Park has way more spaces than we need. I agree during Mary Laxmas, that time in December, that thing is crowded, but that's one time a year and maybe one other time a year. So what we need is to get rid of that space that we use for parking, just use the average parking that we need, but use some of the parking capabilities that are around the park. That Verizon facility across the street is totally empty. Now, somebody's going to say, oh, well, that's dangerous. We don't want kids crossing the street. But that one time of the year during Mary Laxmas, that we can have crossing guards, we can have Cub Scouts, we can have police, we can have fire, and we can cross that field and park across the street. If you look at Atlanta Athletic Club down 141, drive down there October 19th, Johns Creek Arts uses that field across the street. That crossing is locked down. Nobody can get hurt there. So we can do it. We can utilize that space across instead of taking up so much time with parking in the field itself. Let's put more fields. Let's put more capabilities there instead of 300. Also, that the U-shaped professional development center, I think it's just to the northeast, is totally empty. There's those 3 buildings, including the Horseshoe. Maybe a third of it is full with businesses, but the top one is totally empty. You can park up there. How much time left? Am I done? 30 seconds. All right. So you can put a cut through from that parking. We can also park, if you go by the Spring Hill Suites and go further down towards Windward, that professional park right there on a weekend is going to be empty. So when we do have those events 2 times a year, we can do parking in other spaces instead of utilizing that space. Finally, one other thing really quick. I don't know anything about the Arnon Mill property. I know we got 10 acres there. We're trying to figure out what to do with it. Are we putting it on hold? Are we trying to see what we're going to do here first and then figure out what to do there? So I'm just kind of confused about what the expectation is there. But can we add fields if we need it? We don't know. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
All right, next public comment is Johnny Walker.
I like that you get a nice sound.
I'm Johnny Walker. I live at 3150 Fawn Vista Lane. I live in the first home that'll be closest to this proposed park. My wife, my 2 children, and I live there. So first, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Like I said, I don't quite understand the etiquette of this. I'm trying to understand a little bit behind the drivers for this, but I have a couple of concerns. One, if you drive through Lake Deerfield today, it is one of the prettiest areas in the community. And I'm concerned about the fact that even though we're talking about saving trees, we're actually going to wipe out 80% of the trees in that area. And there are a lot of animals and a lot of nature, and I think this will all be lost when this is put in place. And I think we need to be careful about, if we're going to add a park, why don't we look at maybe perhaps scaling back the number of fields and the number of parking places and including more trails and picnic areas and making it more of a park and less of a sports complex. I'm also concerned about the traffic. Living there, I don't know if the Milton police or anyone's done a traffic study and given it to you, but there is a tremendous amount of traffic today that already goes up and down that road. Milton police routinely sit in the entrance to our community to try to help control that. They do an outstanding job, but this is just going to pile onto it. Where it normally dies off when rush hour, that's when this is going to peak with nighttime games, weekend games. So I have a lot of concerns around that. So I'll keep it at that. But as someone who actually has been living there for 15 years, it's a beautiful area. I'm really concerned about why we need to add 4 baseball fields and 2 soccer fields and 0 to 4 pickleball courts. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Appreciate that.
All right, multitasking here. Next is Donald Gross. Donald? Okay. And the checkbox for support or opposition, both were not checked. So, right. Next, we got Ryan Lee.
Hello, Ryan Lee, 295 Black Rock Trace. So I'm here in support of this park. We've been playing baseball at Bell Memorial Field for the past 7 years. It's been a wonderful experience. A lot of people that I recognize in this room have been doing that with me over that time. And so our kids, friendships, staying active together, it's been a positive experience. What we've seen, though, over those last 7 years is a dramatic increase in population rise. So your traffic, kids, families. Bottom line is the facilities that we have now that still exist 7 years ago, we're supporting about 400 kids or so in the baseball league during the spring. Now it's about 1,000, right? It's more than double. So it's an active community, right? Bell's wonderful, but it's just not enough for our kids, for our families, especially for a growing community. I've seen a lot of kids leave the sport due to lack of practice because there's just not enough field space. Kids really need those reps, and I would much rather my kids be playing with their friends, getting exercise outside than playing on Xbox, talking to their friends. So I feel like there's a lot of restriction of access for those kids for those times because there's just simply not enough space. An extra park, 4 extra diamonds gives us that. And with all due respect, the multi-purpose, I'm completely in favor of pickleball and tennis and rectangles. However, baseball diamonds are just unique, and putting kids that are 12 years old, 14 years old on a rectangle with the space, the dimensions just don't work. So that would be my concern there. But yeah, I mean, moving on from that, we've talked about this for years. I feel like the need is there, and I think it's great that people are asking for that in this different part of the city. But we've been talking about this around here in the closer radius, and I would say this is fantastic. Like, thank you for this. This is an amazing sketch, and it really helps it come to life because it is important. But you're right, trees are important, trails are important, horses are important, land's important. But I think our families, our kids, them getting exercise, them staying active and having the resources to do that, I think that's a bigger priority than those other things that I mentioned. So completely in favor of it. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Ron.
Thanks, Ron.
Thanks.
All right, next, I would call Michael Spencer to the podium.
Good afternoon, Michael Spencer, 14770 East Bluff Road. Not going to be as articulate as everybody else with their prepared comments, but also a Milton resident. I've got 2 kids that play out of Bell Memorial as well, last number of years, and kind of echo the comments just around need of access. In fact, we are currently contemplating not returning to the rec season at Bell Memorial and joining a travel team, primarily because our limited access to quality practice time at Bell Memorial has been hampered just with the growth. So I commend the city for looking at. I think there's been a number of land properties, projects that you guys have looked at, potentially expanding some of the recreational facilities in the city. And so again, I'm not that smart. I don't know the highest and best use of this piece of land and whether or not that would be appropriate for here, but I would tell you that it is needed. The other comment that I was going to throw out is I had reached out to Bob Buscemi, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, just in regards to the adjacent property with the Fry's location there. So I know there's some dynamics at play there. One of the potential options that we talked about with him through the Fry store, or something along that property line with them, would be to do an indoor training facility as well. So there's kind of a growing trend across the country. Obviously, you can imagine Northeast part of the United States gets a lot more demand for something like this. But I'm from Texas originally. Austin's got a pretty nice similar facility as this, where you're combining kind of the best of both worlds, some indoor components with the outdoor components. And so perhaps there's the possibility, it was a pretty nice price tag for a project like this. Perhaps there's the possibility to partner with the private community and being able to deliver kind of something that would maybe drive the best use for the facility, whether it's this property or another one. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, I have Nicole Vard. Did you want to speak?
Hi, I'm Nicole Varr at 12822 Waterside Drive. I have been in Milton, well, longer than it's been Milton. I've been at that property for 21 years. My son played at Bell Memorial before we did the revamp. I love baseball. I need to get home by 7 to watch the final game for the College World Series. I sell baseball arm sleeves. I am on the baseball board. Huge baseball supporter. Not a fan of this. We need a facility where we can do indoor activities like gymnastics. We took away our agreement with Alpharetta, and if we're not going to keep the agreement with Alpharetta, we need to have a plan. Every time we buy property, we put another field in. Love the fields. We have fields. I know we need more fields, but we have no indoor facility that I am aware of that you can use for gymnastics, other than the little bitty thing here in Crabapple that only has basketball and a couple of arts programs. But a community center would be great because we could use it for additional basketball courts, gymnastics, also meetings. If you want to try to get a meeting together in the city, it's very difficult to find a space that you can do that. If you want to have a celebratory event for your baseball team, your lacrosse team, there's not a lot of places where you can hold that. A lot of kids actually do rec gymnastics before they even go play baseball, before they go play lacrosse, before they play tennis, all of those sports, because it helps build up your muscle, your coordination, all of that. So all I'm asking is, again, that we look at, as we move forward, how can we incorporate a building so that we can have gymnastics there at some point.
Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you.
Okay, next I'll call Austin Reagans to the podium.
Hello, I'm Austin Reagans, 15350 White Columns Drive. Been in the Alpharetta, Milton area since 2016. Moved into the White Columns neighborhood in 2019, but I've, like Ryan Lee, I've been involved with Hopewell Baseball. I've been on the board of the North Atlanta Football League. I now serve as the vice president. So particularly for the Football League, we represent about 700 families. 700 kids, about 1,400 adults. A large number of our community participates in the NAFL, just like Hopewell Baseball, and we are in dire need of field space. To Ryan's point, it's not just a place for these kids to play football, lacrosse, soccer, other sports. These are where my kids are growing up, since they were 3 and 4 and 5 years old. This is where all of their friendships have been bonded. This is where our community, really the lifeblood of our community, thrives, are on these fields. It's not just about the actual sport and the space. It's birthday parties, it's wellness, it's exercise for the community. And of course, we need additional space just for these leagues to exist. The population has dramatically increased in the past 7 to 10 years, obviously in Milton. Very desirable place to live. We're going to continue to get more people moving here because Milton is a great place. It's a wonderful place to live, to raise your family. I can just speak on behalf of the NFL alone. We're in conversations daily about how are we going to even logistically have our teams practice. They don't even have field space to practice. We're getting to the point where we're going to have 3 tackle football teams on one field. That's 80 plus kids running around in pads together, which is not only a logistical nightmare, but it's a safety concern as well. So I'm in full support of this beautiful park and rendering you guys put together. I think it's wonderful for the community. I think anybody living here can see how more field space, more places for families to be active, to form relationships, to do positive things, to not play Xbox all day, to get outside and play sports is a positive thing. I do understand nature's important. Trees are important. I think luckily we're in an area where we have a lot of beautiful nature. And I think field space for families and for our youth is of utmost importance. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Austin. Appreciate it.
Okay, next, we're going to call Donald back up. He is here. Donald Gross.
I'm Don Gross. I live at 105 Avon Court, Avonsong subdivision off of Deerfield. Deerfield Parkway, you understand, it is called a parkway for a reason. Now, I'm probably going to be a voice crying in the wilderness here, all 21 acres of it, if you'll excuse the pun. But have any of you ever walked over that property? I have, with my dog. And those large trees in there, and give it the majesty and solace of a cathedral. My first thought on looking at all that and that flowing stream was, this should be made a park. And not long afterward, the park proposal that's the subject of this meeting made the news. But my concept of a park is vastly different from what's on this agenda. I'm thinking of nature walks and perhaps a small pavilion in there where people could sit and relax and enjoy the surroundings. In short, a nature preserve. After seeing this proposed athletic complex, did the people who put this together consider the cost of destroying 21 acres of mature forest? What's the value of 21 acres of forest? Well, on a hot summer day, and they're going to get hotter year by year, stand out in the open sun and then step into that forest and note the temperature difference. That's one value of it. along with the oxygen being generated by those trees and the carbon that's been sequestered by them. There's an open field just right down the road from that, past that Hilton Inn. It would accommodate 3 baseball fields without cutting down a single tree. Was any consideration given to that? And directly across Deerfield from this property sits a Verizon campus, abandoned, dead money. Some thought to be given to recycling that property. The beauty of the natural surroundings here makes North Fulton County and generally and Milton area some of the best places to live in this country. I believe all of you are aware of that. There must be a balance between preserving green space and development. Else you're destroying what we all love about this area. I thought last March, it's still summer in South America, Rio hit a heat index of 144 degrees. Do you think slashing and burning the Amazon rainforest had something to do with that? Something to think about anytime you want to trade a forest for a ball field. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Donald. Thanks.
Okay, next, I'm having a hard time reading this one. So if your name starts with M-A-Y and last name starts with P? There we go. Sorry, buddy.
Sorry for making it difficult for you. So my name's Mayur Paranjpe. I live in 12840 Deer Park Lane, and it's going to be right opposite where the park is going to come up. So first of all, thank you for this opportunity here. I think the park is a great idea, and I thought it was till the time I actually came and saw the plan. It looks more different from what my idea of a park would be. My idea of a park would be the same what this old gentleman had, like, keep the trees and the forest on for our new coming generation. I also get the point where, we need more baseball fields and we need more, sports activities for kids. But I think it's not, the kids, in today's kids are not doing sports, not because, there are no fields. It's because we gave them a phone and an iPad, right? And a gaming station to play with. So that's another problem. But having said that, I would really appreciate if we can create this as a real park, as a nature park. That would be more appreciated. I don't know how to solve this conundrum of, weighing sports versus, nature. What are we giving to our next generation? I think we'll have to think about that. But after coming here, if it's going to be a sports park, honestly, I'm not in favor of that. I just wanted to voice that out. But thank you for the opportunity, and I hope you consider this.
Thanks, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, next, we have John Zaworski.
Good evening. I'm John Zaworski, 610 Congreve Court. I wasn't planning on speaking, but I do want to speak in support of the park and just offer a couple comments. My experience at Hopewell, which, as Ryan mentioned, has been fantastic. My son plays lacrosse. My other son plays baseball. My son played for the Hopewell Hawks. We actually had to practice at Birmingham United Methodist Church because there's no field space. So all of the Hawks teams for years have practiced at that field, is my understanding. One right after the other. We've got some batting cages there. The restroom's a porta potty. My wife and daughter aren't a big fan of that. We have visiting teams come in, and that's just not really a sustainable solution to, find other fields and split the team. My son's got lacrosse at Bell, but we're not in one location, so we're, taking 2 trips to different ballparks, and so that's, we've dealt with that for a couple of years. So that's, that's definitely an issue. I will second what Ryan said as well. Using the rectangle fields for ball fields might work for mini hitters or some littler stuff, but as you get older in baseball, that's not really a legit, ball field, ballpark. I was glad to see the batting cages. I think it's on this plan, and somebody had mentioned that. That's a must. I guess it was off some of the other plans. And that's a huge part of practice and being able to get more people up there. Actually, another issue we're having with our Hawks team is we were able to get some practice time at Bell this summer. But one of our days we have field space. The other one we learned we didn't. So we just go up there and use the batting cages for an hour. So our two hour practice time at Bell is actually 1 hour one of those days, and it's only batting cages due to the lack of available field space. So, half our time's at BMC, half the time it's limited at Bell. We love it. It's just some of the challenges we run into, which I think speaks to the need for this additional field space. And then another comment on the parking. I don't know what Bell has parking number-wise, excluding the gravel. I think that's kind of a good barometer for the parking needs that this would require, because on a peak Saturday, I think that asphalt kind of gets, I don't know, Ryan, basically full. So I think that's kind of a good barometer of what a peak day would kind of demand. I rarely, if ever, see the gravel, but you do see that those asphalt spots pretty much reach full capacity. I'm excited about the design. I appreciate all the time that went into it. My son was jabbing me when somebody mentioned basketball, so I'll throw that in there. There is a shortage of basketball courts. We play halftime, very popular program. And, it's winter. It's hard to get outside. We actually, I don't want to use the term broke into, but we use the municipal building over winter break. We went to the church. We're shaking the door on a, Tuesday over winter break, and there's really just nowhere to go. We've used Alfred Elementary's fields or courts. Or we've actually had practice there. So I don't know if there's a way easily, maybe utilize some of Bell's parking lot or just some of these just to add a hoop or two and squeeze some more in. I know my son would bring a basketball while his brother's playing lacrosse and be out there using that. So just something to keep on your radar, or an agreement with Crabapple Baptist to have it open other times besides practice. So, over winter break, or the municipal building, we can have public use times. And I think would be nice. I know we'd be there. So I appreciate it.
Thanks very much, John.
Thanks. All right. Our final public comment is Angelo Dradigos.
Close enough.
I knew I wasn't going to get it right. You can try to say my name.
My wife didn't even say it right. Hi, I'm Angelo Strategos. I live at 12894 Deer Park Lane. The subdivision that would be right across the street or catty corner to it. I'm a native of Atlanta, and I will tell you that the Alpharetta Audubon is no longer Highway 400. It is Deerfield Parkway. And the traffic would be ridiculous, in my opinion. It's already horrendous now. The Alpharetta police do a great job doing it, but short of putting nail strips across the road, it is out of hand. And I can imagine just on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning, because I coached soccer for the Y for a number of years, and the traffic in and around those areas was always awful. And I have noticed that most people that are for this do not live anywhere near or not in a close proximity to the subdivision that I live in. And also, I did notice a gentleman that spoke earlier in this meeting. He did say that, making reference to this area that was not being used, or this field that was not being used, or this field that was not being used. If these fields are not being used, why are we building more or trying to build more? I do agree with the concept of a fantastic green space, but a sports complex, I would say no. And thank you for letting me speak.
Thanks, Angelo.
All right, we have one more. Just got turned in. Ms. Holly Prano.
It's Holly Prano, Prano, and I live at 12806 Lake Deerfield. And my comment is that the comments about the no fields available. I go to North Park and I walk there every single day, various times of the day. I don't know how many baseball fields there are. And I tell you what, in the last 2 months, I've not seen anybody there. Nobody practicing with their kids or anything. So you have a whole bunch of baseball courts available. Now, in the fall and maybe the spring, Maybe a Saturday, it's all booked up, but boy, I walk there every single day and that field is wide open for anybody to use. Thank you.
Thanks, Helen.
Okay. That concludes public comment.
Great. Okay, so we'll go back to the agenda. It's a lot of comment, a lot of discussions. I appreciate everybody who's either participated and watched the discussion or took time to come out tonight. This is one of the largest attended public parks meetings that we've had. So thanks everybody sincerely for coming up and speaking up tonight. From us, Tom, we probably need to consider some kind of motion, I suspect. Is
Well,
that
I got a
our
question.
discussion. You want to talk about amongst the board or?
So, I mean, I have a couple questions based on some of the points that were brought up. And, you know, they may or may not be ones that we can answer here tonight. But, you know, one point, that property, it's 21 acres, roughly $8 million. So roughly 400,000 an acre. I'm assuming if we didn't do this, it's on the market for commercial use, or is that zoned Ag 1? What's the current zoning on that property?
It's T4. You can do a lot on that property. Yeah.
So
It could be more apartments.
I mean, the thing that I think about is, you know, if there's not a park that's responsibly, a sports complex that's responsibly planned, you know, there's a lot of different things that could go there, which may have a lot less control over. And then from man, that's loud. $400,000 for an acre would seem to be on the very, very high side of a green space. I mean, that would be a very expensive green space, would it not?
Yes.
And then one other question. Do we have a study on the capacity of the current fields or needs for, I think we do, for baseball and football?
Yes.
Would we share that at a later date, or would that be shared in council?
I can give you the highlights right now if you'd like.
Okay.
So we have our comprehensive 10-year master plan that we're getting close to the conclusion of here in 2027. And this park will get us to our 2017 numbers of what we were short in 2017. And then we're still a couple fields short beyond that for the future projection of 2027. Now, the master plan those numbers were calculated based upon population and level of service numbers based upon population. And we're a little bit unique because we don't have a soccer program that is run through the city, but based upon just general population numbers, one could assume you would probably have a soccer program, right? But we also have a large lacrosse program that's larger than most towns or cities or municipalities would have as well. So we have done internal, analysis based upon field capacities and what our registration numbers currently are. And getting these 6 fields would get us exactly what we need to be able to have a little bit of breathing room for our programs where we're not respectably packing in on some of our, I heard some public comment about, we're not able to even have field time for baseball. We're just doing our practice in the cage. There might be an open spot here or there when you go by Bell, but oftentimes it'll be at a time that's not desired for whatever reason. I mean, you have coaches that volunteer their time and, there might be a spot that just no one can practice, but yeah, I think that answers the question.
And then North Park is Alpharetta, and we don't have an agreement with them to be able to use it because their capacity is correct?
Yes.
And then when is the next, so I know we did the comprehensive plan. So the next comprehensive plan is?
If council chooses to do another one, we're probably recommending starting that next year.
Which would be
Next
the
fiscal year.
time that we would address some of the other potential buildings as far as like gymnastics or something that would be near and dear to my heart, a natatorium, considering that my son at Cambridge, we drive him to Cumming Aquatic Center for a 9 o'clock practice. So, you know, there are other needs we have, but obviously the comprehensive plan addressed what was considered priority at the time, correct?
Yes, and in that master plan, indoor space was contemplated as well.
Okay.
With, I want to get the number exactly right. Like 76,000 square feet of indoor space, which is almost twice the size of the Alpharetta Community Center next to Wills Park. So it's already been addressed in the master plan. It just, the field space issues
felt
just,
a lower list, yeah.
Okay, great.
From existing programs.
No, thanks for that. Thanks for answering my questions.
Oh, you bet.
Other questions for Tom amongst ourselves?
Do we know how many parking spaces are currently at Bell Memorial?
370 paved spaces.
Paved.
370 paved.
Paved, yeah. And then there's that overflow in the back. I don't have, or I bet you could get another 50 maybe back there.
Oh, I did have one other question. So the agreements that we would make with surrounding properties, would those be at the generosity of these, or is that a paid agreement as far as using parking spaces? I mean, obviously we wouldn't have a lot of control over it.
We haven't talked the details of what those partnerships could look like. Yes, we could lease the parking lot, or maybe they have a need for some improvements and we can do something to the parking lot that'll maybe give it some longevity and life cycle. So there's options out there. We actually just had one of the neighbors, we had a kickoff call today just to kind of test the water. So we're not deep in those discussions yet.
Yeah. And I don't know if adding parking away from the proposed concept would be, I think you might be in the park to go to the field rather than traversing the streets, except for a special event, right? Which would make it difficult.
I know there
on a
was
regular
some
use.
discussion potentially of walking to Fry's and another Highway 9 property for parking. So, okay, great.
Tom, the one question I had, it came up in comment, was around traffic counts. And certainly as someone who commutes on Deerfield often, I certainly know it's busy. And while I haven't been stopped by MPD, I've seen many people sadly who have. Are there traffic count numbers available to the city for ingress and egress at Bell Memorial to kind of put some context around what does traffic look like?
Possibly.
Or should we plan for some?
I will be honest and didn't have this prepared, but I think.
Yeah, no,
I might have something in my email, and if I have it,
Okay.
I'll pull it up.
That's fine.
Because we have a flock camera at Bell Memorial.
Right.
So I might have some
gotcha.
data from that block.
I mean, at the end, other comments, questions amongst us? I mean, at the end, I think the council's looking to us for some recommendation on due diligence as clock is ticking on this property. I think Scott raised some great points that if it's not a sports complex and accepting that this is a concept, it could be anything in the city of Milton. And at least we control that part of it by taking the opportunity. The need, as someone who's been here for a long time, the need for fields has been as big as ever 10 years ago. That hasn't changed. And it's been identified as a priority in lots of planning documents and lots of prior meetings on this board, lots of years prior on this board. So I think at this point, bearing some questions on the side that we could throw to Tom after the meeting, I think the council wants us to tell them what should we do? Where do we want to go with this piece of property? The options are, fully support it and continue the concept planning because it recognizes it is concept. And other options are stop now and tell them to stop. And then it's still up to council to make their decision on what they want to do with this piece of property. We're just advising. So we've heard a lot of good comment. We've been in plenty of discussion about the needs for fields in this city for years. I'm personally, I'm leaning towards a motion that would say we'd support the council in pursuing due diligence and taking concept C and exploring what it looks like in a design phase and let them wrestle with it next. If that's what this board feels. Seems like you're all kind of
Support it. Yeah.
So just need to hear a motion then of some language to support concept C and communicating to the council that we should pursue due diligence on this property and not stop. And they will then take over the planning process.
I will make a motion to support concept C as presented by the firm that gave the presentation, and have council
Move forward with
Move
due
forward.
Move
with
forward
it.
with their due diligence, yeah.
I'll
There's
second
a
it.
motion from Stephanie, a second from Scott. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Thank you. Tom, that takes us, finishes item 7, unfinished business. And I know we had some cross-purposing discussions. We moved to item 8, new business, which is a community discussion regarding pending city acquisition of 10.488 acres at 12875 Arnold Mill Road. Thomas, looking to get some graphic support. it looks
Okay,
like.
give me just one moment, please. I'm gonna need to. I'm gonna have to present at the I'm gonna present.
There you go.
Okay, so I'm gonna provide a quick presentation on this property here. It'll be brief.
Is your mic on, Tom? Because I can't hear you up here. There you go, better. Sorry.
Really appreciate, right? A lot of good thoughts came out, right, after after questions were asked. So if you could really present all the logic, all the rationale that went into kind of planning this, and maybe put something on the website so that, people like me who had absolutely no idea what it is, right? And good, like, when Scott said that, hey, it can be used for something else, which could be like commercial, it could be worse than what it is today. So very good points which came out, right? You also made a couple of great points there. So I would really appreciate if this can be justified in a much better way so that people can really look at it, look at the forest rather than the trees.
Super. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so next up here we have 12875 Arnold Mill Road. We are currently in due diligence on this property as well. And we are hosting this.
They said they can't hear back there.
Pull it down and closer to you or something. Maybe.
You can speak
You're a
out.
little
Listen,
tall, Tom.
you can
Just
speak
don't-
out of mine. It's really
Yeah,
loud.
We'll keep it on the presentation screen so you don't have to look at me all hunched over this. All right, so 12875 Arnold Mill Road. We are currently in due diligence on this property as well. The eventual use has not been determined at this time, but as we are doing now with our land acquisition, we do need to provide an opportunity for the public to provide their feedback and input. And so we decided, while the eventual use of this land, if we were to close and purchase it, has not been determined, a park is one potential option, and this board is a good sounding board to bounce it off of and give the community an opportunity to come and give their opinion on it as well. So this property is 10.48 acres. I'm calling it like an old homestead. It's breathtaking property. It's so beautiful when we went out there. It's just a cleared, nice meadow. There's some trees and some older structures on the property as well. It's very flat. You'll see in another slide or two the topography. It's ready to go for any sort of, if a building or a field or something were to go on this property, it's ready to go. We are under contract right now for $1.75 million on the property. Just to give you an idea of the surroundings, to the east, there are 5 residential homes. And then that larger square kind of on the southern end of the property to the right is a church. To the north and west, there are undeveloped land. To the north is the pasture essentially continues to that large rectangle to the north. And then to the west, it's undeveloped, all wooded. And it sits right across the street from Legacy Park off Arnold Mill Road. And it also is important to note, there is no water on the property and there's no floodplain of any sort. So. Here's that, the aerial shots on the right to give you an idea. You can see how most of it is, pasture land cleared. And then on the left, you can see the topo. It's really flat. You can see by the lines and the spacing there. Here are some of the existing structures on the property, just to give you an idea of what we're looking at here. Old barns, essentially. Some of them are in a little bit of rougher shape, but so what are some potential uses, right? I list off a lot of parks and recreation options if it were to become a park someday. However, we're not, going to discount the idea that maybe public safety needs some sort of building, or public works needs another area to store things or put something on, or fire department and anything. This is an opportunity for us to scoop up some land in a pretty good price per acre, and it's developable too. Really, it's workable. Good word I like to use. So, open up to any questions or PRAB discussion. I can.
Did you?
No, I'm gonna.
I know. So it's obviously a long-term play because there's no specific use for it identified at this point. Is there a time period? Like, do you think it's 5 years out from being used? Do you think it's 10 years out from being used, or is it's just?
I'm not extremely comfortable answering that question with any confidence.
Okay.
It's probably you're probably close though. Yeah, somewhere in that 5 to 10 range.
But it seems at 160 or around 166 an acre, it's a steal of a piece of property and
Especially with no water.
and
Completely
potentially
flat.
again, I would think that is a piece of property that would get potentially snapped up and developed in some other means.
Just curious, Tom, did Green Space ever look at this property in their planning process, evaluation process of parcels around the city?
I don't know.
Okay.
To answer that one.
But you list that as a potential, as passive use.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, you could even say passive use as, trails and
Yeah, they're not
a playground, like even like a playground and a pavilion isn't really that active, We do have public comment on this too.
Oh, then by all means, let's hear public comment. Thanks, Tom. Yep. All right.
I want to thank Miss Samantha Evans for her patience, and I'd like to call you up to the podium.
Samantha Evans. My address is 507 Etris Court, technically in Roswell, but we're the next door neighbor of Legacy Park, so walking distance to this property. Thank you also for the patience with the 1 and 4-year-old. We just wanted to come show our support of using this as a public green space, especially a playground, or other uses for children's activities. They're pretty limited in the area, especially playgrounds. Any kind of community meeting spaces. Right now, the use at Legacy Park is mostly adult soccer leagues, and there aren't really safe places for young kids to play there when the fields are in use. So we'd love to see it turned into something that families can experience, splash pad, playground, trails, and in the community would love if the city purchases property. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And I do have one public comment here that I'm going to read into the record. It is from Christy Hayes at 13585 Hopewell Road. Without clearly stated objectives for the use and function for this pending acquisition of 10.488 acres at 12875 Arnold Mill Road, the city should not purchase the land. In my opinion, tax dollars should never be spent without clearly stated goals and budget projections for property purchases. It is my understanding that the use of the Arnold Mill properties has yet to be determined. Therefore, I believe the city should not proceed with the purchase. Thank you. And that is the conclusion of our public comment.
Tom, we mentioned due diligence in both properties. I know that I can't remember the exact timing off the top of my head. Can you tell me when that clock expires?
Yeah, so the clock expires on this property, Arnold Mill, on July 7th.
July 7th.
And then Crescent, or the property of Deerfield, is the 21st of July.
First. Okay. So after, on the item, after today's meeting, there's no public comment on the Arnold Mill property other than today? Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What are they looking for? Just the recommendation of continuing or our support for purchasing the property?
Again, I think we're free to, as advisors to the council, to tell the city what we think they should do with it. They're going to be free to, as they've proven to themselves, to make their own decision. But that as a board, our role is to give them advice. They have been looking to us for advice. So I think we need to take this item tonight and make some kind of action-oriented recommendation to them.
I'd make a motion that we support the purchase of the property at Arnold Mill.
I hear a second.
Second.
Any comments? I think it's a right idea to save some inventory. It doesn't have to have a purpose per se. If the city's willing to evaluate and consider it, then they figured out how they're going to pay for it. We know how hard it is to find park space and how long it takes. And this one's right in front of us. So based on that, motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Okay, so that closes out item 8. I again appreciate everyone's participation today in the meeting. And I will then take us back to committee reports. Is that right, Tom? All right, so we're back on committee reports. Hopewell Baseball wrote me a nice note. So they are certainly busy as All-Star season is ongoing. And Tom, if I miss something, let me know. They're waiting for fall registration is open. Our Atlanta Braves are energizing parks around the Southeast in an effort to get kids playing the game longer and not departing for travel ball. So they have created a program that Hopewell is one of the first to participate in. And they have aligned themselves to Braves country for baseball playing and versus playing where they used to in Dizzy Dean.
Scott, I watched them win. I was at Roswell. They were kicking butt.
That's good to hear. They're still waiting to send us some numbers, and they know that. And there are travel tryouts for next year posted and ready to go. Did I miss anything?
I'd just like to add, I think the Summer Sandlot is their June league. It'll end later this, I guess, in the next week. And it'll follow, or to be followed, will be 2 additional HYA summer baseball camps next month.
Awesome. Super. Next item, Eagle Sticks. We're missing our lacrosse.
Sure, I can touch on Eagle Sticks. Eagle Sticks summer programming, great participation this year. Continuing on through next month as well. I know Tim working very hard on that program. I got numbers. Don't quote me, but I think pushing 300 just for a summer program for Eagle Sticks. They also had 2 June camps, very successful at Bell Memorial Park this season, this summer. But yeah, Eagle Sticks going well this summer.
Awesome.
Looking forward to fall.
Are you going to talk about boys lacrosse then too?
Sure. Yeah, North Georgia lacrosse. Not too much activity during the summer. Cambridge and Milton both offer some youth camps for their participants. So be on the lookout for those come in July for the boys.
Great. Thank you. Stephanie, football.
Yes, so football registration has officially closed. David sent me numbers, 684 registrations, and that includes competition cheer, sideline cheer, girls flag football, boys flag football, and tackle football. Yeah, so.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
A lot of people.
I talked to David today via email just about some field space, trying to get ahead of things. Not really get ahead of things since football's already here. But he's now aware that NFL will have Legacy Park Field 3 of priority over there. So that eased some scheduling on them that the new board wasn't quite in tune with yet, but they were excited to hear that they'll have Bell Field 1 and then priority to Legacy Field 3 this fall.
Awesome. Halftime sports. Is that you, Ralph?
Yes, sir. Summer camp numbers are down this year from last year. A lot of that is due to the technical difficulties they had with the AC at both other of the facilities. But luckily this year, they were able to work out a deal with Shoot 360. So that is an awesome deal for the kids. So Kim's looking at utilizing that here in the fall season for like the playoffs. So I think that'll be really exciting. I'm really excited to get my kid in that program too, to use that Shoot 360. He recently had an NBA veteran there, Mr. Dell Ellis. He was just there. So that's pretty cool. But aside from that, things are going pretty well.
Three-point contest winner.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and the Shoot 360 facility is pretty cool. It's got a lot of, it incorporates like technology and games on the sides of the courts, and you can play against other people at other places, like little 3-point games and passing games into like, it's all, if you're like familiar with like Toka, where like it's all technology and like you shoot the ball in the goal and then you get points on the screens and stuff. The kids will really like it once the word starts getting around that, you know, we're doing camp at this cool place and they're not just in a middle school gym or something.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Swim team, Scott.
All right. So we hosted the 300-pound gorilla last weekend at the pool. Unfortunately, we came up 80 points short, but we had 370 kids on deck with their parents. And Tom didn't get any complaints. So, I mean, it was really smooth. I mean, Beth and Stephanie, I brag on my wife, but they run a tight ship and they had it down, and Alpharetta was calling to beg us to let them host it. And Steph and Beth were like, no, y'all are coming to us. We can do this. So it was a success. We have our last meet tomorrow night. It's another pretty big one. It's Windward. It's not quite as big as Alpharetta. We should, I'm not going to say it. Hopefully we should look good in that one. And then we close up the season taking 86 kids down to Tech for the meet, and we look pretty good in that one too. So hopefully we're bringing home some hardware. But it's a great program and another great year. So
Awesome. Thanks, Scott. I didn't talk to Terry before this meeting. Thomas, do you have anything to share on tennis for me?
I don't have much of a report.
I ran into
for-
him in the
for
supermarket, but it
for
didn't,
tennis.
didn't result in me getting him to come to this
Things are
meeting.
well with his program, his youth camps this summer. Just continuing to pack his courts, and very hopeful for the future for tennis. You know, Terry.
Yep.
Fingers crossed for more courts for him.
Awesome. Youth arts programming.
That's me, right?
yes,
I can touch on
Yeah.
So just for our youth arts programming, we're finding continued some success over at the recreation center, at the community center rather, with our different arts programs. Matthew's continuing to push marketing, working closely with all of those program providers to try and boost their registration as best as possible. But as far as the offerings for summer, so far so good.
Good. Adult programming.
Adult programming will be me. The Rush Adult Athletic summer season is underway. They're playing 7 versus 7s, no 11 versus 11s this season. And then adult petanque registration is open for that adult league that participates at Bell Memorial in that gravel parking lot that we've touched on a couple times tonight.
Great. Our favorite Camp Joyful Souls.
Yeah, let me go ahead and just bundle Camp Joyful Souls and Camp Compass. Both camps very successful in our 4th week. Hard to believe it's our 4th week rounding out June with camp. Camp Joyful Souls is full for the duration of the summer. Every now and then we have some dropouts and are able to pull some folks off wait lists. But so far, relatively smooth summer. Great staff. Just Camp Joyful Souls can't say enough good things about it. Same for Camp Compass. They're having fun going on their field trips. I know management over there kind of has a good grasp on things this summer in our 2nd year. So great things from all of our camp staff.
Awesome. And then last but not least, outdoor recreation programming.
Ready for a full report?
Yeah.
Got you. We finished our first NOC camp last week. Big success. We had 11 Milton kiddos, ages 13 and 14. What I can say that I told parents and carpool every day, I happen to go on all 4 of the 5 days. So if I can keep up with 14-year-olds, they need to be off the technology. But I didn't have a single complaint from a kiddo. And since most of you have kids, you understand. Not hearing complaints from 13 and 14-year-olds while outside doing physical activity is pretty awesome. So we'll be doing another camp in July. We have 1 spot we're trying to fill so that it makes. So I need help get that 1 spot filled. But yeah, we look forward to the future with that partnership. It kind of hit social media and adults got excited about it. So I think we're going to try to venture into doing some adult things, possibly partnering with Hyde Brewery or Six Bridges, and just kind of be the middle lady between NOC, getting people on the water and hanging out in a really cool social spot. Also having an overnight camp next year where we would go to North Carolina, the headquarters of NOC, and do zip lining, mountain biking, and all the water sports. Maybe go down the Olympic run on a raft. So yeah.
if you want to share the 1 slot left thing with me, I'll put it in the
Nothing would make me happier,
half
Scott.
sweet, and the other one maybe it'll get gobbled up.
What week is it that you need somebody?
July 8th, and that's for our 10 to 12-year-olds. The week of July 8th,
12-year-olds
10 to 12. Mm-hmm.
of children.
Yes, you do.
We should be
Yes,
able to
you
find one.
I know you can. That's why I'm here.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So Junior Ranger Academy. Well, do you want me to save all that or just go into all the outdoor rec stuff? Okay, cool. So Junior Ranger Academy, which will tie into Parks and Rec Month next next month. I'll be offering 2 classes a day on Wednesdays for 4 weeks. Thank you. Appreciate the support.
That's a lot of attention.
Does it? Oh, you can have more. Give them out. Basically, this is boot camp for kids. They're going to finish their book on week 4. So we will have guest speakers come out. We'll do it in 4 different parks. And that way, I mean, it already filled up on the first day that it was open. I have a couple spots left for the evening time. But people are excited, and it's free, and it's something great to do in the summertime if you don't have your kids in childcare or camp. So yeah, that'll support that. Our kids fishing day, huge success. Thomas was there. Matthew hung out with me. The successful part was not just having 16 kids and a bunch of adults hanging out at Providence fishing, but we hosted the trail mix hike there. So on one part of Providence Park, we had 100 people hiking and getting trail mix, but they were all coming down to the pier and just shocked, like, oh, we have water and we have a pier and we've never been to this park, right? So we're getting a whole lot more exposure just by having these little programs. But more importantly, I've now become the fishing lady, and people are throwing their kids at me. I see kids on bikes with fishing poles everywhere. It's not stopping. We have to get these ponds stocked and these fish fed, right?
I'm ready.
So I'm looking for a fly fishing instructor right now so we can go at Chattahoochee and take kids on kayaking trips and adults to teach fly fishing as well. You might know a guy.
I got a guy that
Yeah,
I
see?
can talk to.
I knew it.
Fun fact, I've seen the same gentleman multiple times. I've never spoke to him at Legacy Park on the fields
Practicing his timing. See, this is a real fishing community, so I'm really excited.
I would volunteer my friend with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Professional guide. So we'll
That's what
see
I'm
if I
looking
can
for.
get-
So hopefully in the future we can partner with some fungi experts, fishing experts, watercraft, and do all kinds of cool stuff here. Last but not least are our scout projects. I saved this for last because I've been keeping track of some metrics for our team, and I think this is critical for how we move forward in the future with building parks, right? They need amenities and infrastructure, and these scouts are coming in droves. They're finding out that we're great to work with and we have amazing spaces that they want to help design. So it's kind of been a fun project. This past month, we had Nathan out of Troop 841. He built garden beds and benches in Birmingham. Ariel from Troop 3000 built picnic tables and benches in Mayfield, which the Friends of Mayfield, who keep that park for us and volunteer many hours, laborious hours, are super grateful, and we're out there thanking the scouts, which I always appreciate. And then Aiden Roy built benches at MCPP, and that got a rave review because that is where I get the most feedback that we need amenities, right?
Did he build all of them?
All 6 of them.
I was going to say there were several.
It was a hefty job. That's the biggest scout project I've seen. Yeah.
Even
Yeah,
putting
he
them in
took
the
on a
ground
lot.
seemed like a task.
Yeah, it was. It took 3 weekends and they got it all done, and it's beautiful. There's now benches by the ponds. But all of that in total were 606 volunteer service hours in our parks. And just in supplies alone, $3,500. So if you were to take those service hours that they put those in, and we would put that to the maintenance crew and say, what is that, $12 an hour? That's a cost savings of $10,000 just in 2 months to build really nice amenities. So we're trying to do more to support our scouts and thank them for their time and their service of what they offer the community. So you'll see more social media posts, more engagement with the community and the scouts. So
That's awesome.
yep. And we've got 4 more scout projects coming up in the coming months, and I'll give you a report on those.
Great. Thanks, Jen.
Mm-hmm.
Tom, as I turned the agenda, I realized I skipped item 8B. Sorry, my bad. Under new business, I'm going to return to that now. And yeah, tell us about the incorporation of instructor contracts to provide recreational programming.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. So this is we're the way that our contracts are right now with our program providers is, we contract with our local baseball or some sort of other private entity, and they are essentially the provider of the entire program. We're starting to get some feedback that program provider agreement structure doesn't work that great for some of our programs. And so I'm exploring the idea of doing more of an instructor-based contract that is available to someone who, hey, I just want to teach an art class. I don't want to have to go get a business and, do all this other stuff. Can you just pay me as an instructor? So it's not uncommon. In fact, it's very common for a Parks and Rec department to just have contracts with someone to teach a class, and they get a rate to teach the class. And then the city, in our case, would pull a little bit more of the lift. We would set the prices for the program at that point, because then we'd have a budget for the instructor, and we work out the rest on our end. We're still, a lot of the smaller programs, we handle the registration anyway, so there's no real change there. But with it being something new, and it kind of just popped up right when I was building this agenda, I thought, oh, great, I'll just throw it in front of Parks Board, see what you guys think. But I think it's a good opportunity for us to maybe grow some of our other small indoor, like might be easier to find a yoga instructor or Zumba or art or whatever it may be. Or some of our current providers might prefer to go that route versus the program provider route. So just wanted to kick that back to you, and you could give us a recommendation if you're in favor.
My assumption would be they would still sign some kind of agreement. There'll still be some minimum contractual responsibilities.
It's going to be a 40-page document, probably 30 pages to
this city Milton's famous
teach a class.
for. Yeah, no, fair enough. Questions for Tom on this idea of instructor contracting for programming? I like the flexibility it gives
Makes
you.
it easier.
I can hire a fly fisherman.
Yeah, exactly.
Thinking of that.
It would be interesting as you get into it, Tom, and you start to research it, because I heard you make a comment about some instructors might want to flip-flop. Well, we would want to know which, if they flip-flop, was it good for them and bad for the city, or vice versa, right? So I wouldn't want them flip-flopping because it's convenient for them. But I'll leave that to you guys in the case-by-case kind of basis thing. But I know
We're truthfully,
the goal is to drive more participation at the end of the day.
it is, and we're in fear of potentially losing a couple programs because of the obligations that they have to go through to be a program provider, and they teach just a couple of classes here and there.
What's the vetting process then? Because it seems to me that right now, if you are serious about your business, you're going to be, a provider, and that means you've already probably put some time, effort, thought into it. If I'm like, I don't really have that much on the hook, like maybe I'm not a great art teacher or whatever, but I just wanted to do it. I mean, is there some kind of vetting process to still make sure that they're
I would still plan on bringing
Quality.
them to this board. And
Got it,
and
okay.
it would still be a similar presentation that you would normally receive. However, they just wouldn't be representing a business,
Sure.
Right.
Mhm.
a bigger entity.
It's fair. Okay. It sounds like a valuable new option. Protect some current programming, maybe drive participation in existing ones. Guess we could have a motion to
I'll make a
drive
motion
Tom.
that we incorporate instructor contracts to provide recreational programming.
A motion by Scott. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. Any comments? Last minute comments? Then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Good luck, Tom. Last item C, actually second to last item, because item number 9, city staff reports communication. Jen did a great job giving us a big recreation and parks update. And I appreciate that, Jen. One of the things we need to really think about, listening to public comment earlier, you talked specifically about things at Providence Park and I'm constantly amazed about maybe the lack of understanding and awareness of where else can they go to a park other than the one that's across the street. You know,
That's right.
there's lots, and the city needs to keep driving the messaging around what is out there and what's been invested in already. So thanks for talking a lot about Providence Park. That's important. Tom, you're looking up notes for the Legacy Park parking lot, I suspect.
No, I'm not.
Okay, no.
Parks and Rec
I
month.
guess wrong.
I was preparing for the other one.
Okay,
All right, so
then go to
there's
Parks and Rec month. Finish that out.
yeah. Parks and Rec month. We've got. Oh, I do need to pull it up. Had it on my. Oh, I think it's my. Here it is. So National Parks and Rec month is next month, and we do all kinds of fun things during that month. Try to showcase those in the community that are doing great things. We have a Parks and Rec Professional Day on Friday, July 19th. We do happen to have an event that month as well. So we'll have the 4th of July Independence Day walking parade and celebration. We're incorporating something new on the last day of July, Splash and Bash, little party at the Milton City Park and Preserve Community Center. Try to spark some of our programming as well as just have a great time at the pool. We'll get some water inflatables potentially and just have a nice fun day outside with water. And then we'll have Park Feature Fridays. And we do something similar to this every year. We'll kind of highlight some of our parks that maybe some not your just typical Bell Park that a lot of our community has already been to, but we'll hit maybe some of our green spaces with trails that are open, or the Broadwell Pavilion is a good one to remind people about. But and then Jen already spoke on her Junior Ranger Academy little program that is going to be awesome. And Wellness Wednesdays. So we're going to have some of our programs do some classes on Wednesdays. Have the times been nailed down yet?
No. No, they'll be catered to the program.
Okay.
It's just basically opening it up to the community for free and giving them a.
I just haven't heard if
Sure.
that's been nailed down yet. But that's kind of the quick and dirty. Did I miss anything from the rest of the team?
Park Feature Fridays are going to talk about parks that people typically don't know about. And it is going to point to features that they definitely don't realize they can do in those parks.
That's
So
awesome.
It speaks to your point. If we're at La Capani, people always ask, where is this lake I've heard about? Right? Here's how you get here. This is what it looks like.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Awesome. Anything else for item A?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Then we will call last item, a city staff reports legacy parking lot update.
This is the one I was trying to. Here we go. All right, I have a small update. I did promise the board that I would just kind of leave this as a rolling item until it's really up and running. So the RFP for the design services for both the Legacy Park parking lot and the Milton City Park and Preserve improvements on the anticipated grant we're going to receive. We're combining those two together, and it is out and it is closing on July 10th. And then at that point, we reveal the bids and choose a winner and keep the process going.
Yep.
So we should be, I would think we'd be under contract in August probably. September at the first meeting in September, I would think at the latest probably. So that project is moving and we're making progress.
Great. Super. Questions for Tom on parking lot or anything else in city staff reports? Hearing none. Last item, other business. Any other business for the board today?
Please get me your Wall of Fame ballots if you have not done so. Wall of Fame ballots.
Thank you. Return your Wall of Fame ballots.
Thomas for the win.
Thomas is, it's in an email.
Yeah, I finally got.
Good. Okay, if there's nothing else, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Motion by Morgan, second by Scott. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? None. See you next month. Great meeting.